Welcome, everybody. I know that not all of you guys are familiar with Oceanside Chat. For me, this is such a great occasion. We're kicking it off for 2023. It has been a good hot minute since we've done an Oceanside Chat, and I can't tell you just how excited I am once again to have a people interested in startups and innovation. And maybe this is your first time hearing about the Startup Garage. So I just really want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking time and joining us on this Wednesday noontime. Feel free to have a snack, have something to drink. This is a very informal but useful event that we host pretty routinely. They're ad hoc, but our Q1 calendar just grew with topics that I think are going to be really useful for startup entrepreneurs, students, faculty, researchers, basically the ecosystem of innovation and technology. I want to quickly welcome our special guest today, Cristian. I don't know if you go by Cristian or Chris. I'm going to start calling you Chris just because it feels right coming out my mouth. Chris is a two-time founder and software engineer. He founded Medallia's Product Development Center in Argentina, where he hired more than 100 top engineers. And in that process, he realized that about 75% of those hires came from referrals, which basically led him to his latest co-founded and CEO role at Second Degree, which is where I met him through some connections here at the Startup Garage. I have to tell you, we have not had a resource like this in the past. And so I'm super excited to be able to bring a talk to our Oceanside Chat that is addressing a need that I see very often in the startup community, which is how and when to hire a CTO. A lot of the time you have a great idea and you don't exactly have the tech talent to back it up. And you wear that hat for a long time and it's kind of hard to pull that trigger on getting that technical talent. And so I'm really hoping that today's Oceanside Chat is going to be really beneficial to the community. I'll let Cristian take the mic and lean into his profile a little bit, but we're just really happy to have you and Anna, and I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Do you see my screen?
We do.
Perfect. Oh, I want to introduce Anna, my co-founder.
Allows anyone to convert a room or a
There you go.
Okay. Okay, give me just a second. Technology. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Arcelia, for the invitation. Let's start with some little interaction. If you can answer on the chat or raise your hand. How many of you are founders in the audience?
A few.
Yeah, I see a lot of hands coming up.
Perfect. And how many of you are looking for a CTO or a tech employee, or the first tech employee that could be technology in the team? Perfect. Okay, let's start. I'm gonna give you like 2 minutes about me. Like Arcelia said, I'm a two-time founder. I started a development center of a Silicon Valley startup in Argentina. I hired more than 100 engineers, and I can talk maybe more hours about mistakes and just a few minutes about successes, but at the end, what is important is the learning. So I hope you're gonna make less mistakes learning from my mistakes. I tried everything. I started with my network, of course. I hired a lot of engineers coming from my network. Then I tried everything. I tried hiring recruiters, posting searches in LinkedIn, using talent marketplaces, but that was not providing me A players. It was more like Bs and Cs and some even Ds. So we had to try something new, and we started with referrals, with paying a referral bonus to our employees. I was technically sitting with them once every other week, going 30 minutes through their LinkedIn and say, hey, you have to introduce me this guy, please give me 10 minutes with this person. And that worked really well. We hired a lot of engineers, but it was not enough. We need to hire much more. So we decided to start rewarding the connections in their network. And that worked super well. I mean, it was not just that our network was influencing their network, they're also influencing the network of the network. So it was a great learning, and that helped us a lot to hire 100 top A players, top engineers. When I left the company, many CTOs approached me to ask me for help to hire engineers in Argentina. And I decided to scale what it worked for me. So we created Second Degree. Second Degree is a network of A players where each node is a recruiter. And I love to share my experiences. So let's jump into the topic. Okay, if you have a co-founder CTO, that's end of the problem. I'm happy you to stay, but you don't have a problem with that because you have already somebody that is in charge of the technology. But if not, there's just a couple of things you have to have in mind before making a hire. And I would like to start to describe the different problems you have in different stages of the company. When you are in a pre-seed or seed, that maybe most of the audience is now, you need a very small team because you need to get to product market fit. So everything in what you build need to be focused on getting product market fit. You probably, it's okay if in 2 years you start from zero and write a new platform or your new product, and that's okay because right now the focus is in getting product market fit, getting funding, being sure that it's an opportunity in the market. So you don't need any management skill at this point. It will be great if you can have somebody that can leadership skills, that can lead a team that could be influential to the peers, but you don't need any management skills. This is going to be the flattest version of the organization. I promise you that in a few years you're going to miss the velocity and the flexibility that you have now. So you have to use that 100% and focus on product market fit. So in this stage, you need a couple of full stack engineers. One of them could be a lead, but you need people that produce code that can adapt quickly and has great quality and understand what you tell them. I mean, when I say that you don't need management, is everybody's going to fit in a conference room, a small conference room or in a Zoom meeting. So the distance between the founders of the actual coders is zero. You see each other. So you don't need any managerial skill. When you get into the Series A and B, now the focus on the platform, the product should be on scaling on users. I mean, you have product market fit, now you have to grow. And it's okay if you create even a new version of the platform, concern in how to get into new customer faster, how I build features faster. It's okay not being focused on cost. Maybe it's not the most cost-effective platform. Well, maybe these days with this on the requirements and the VCs might be more important than before, but the focus now is growing fast. So creating features. You will have many teams, maybe. So probably you will need managers and maybe even a director that is a leader of leaders. I mean, somebody that could lead all the managers. And you have some processes. I mean, you need to grow fast. So the founders that have direct connection with the engineers, but so you might need some management, but still not a CTO. When you get into Series C to IPO, the moment is difficult to predict. You in this new version of the product, you need to scale in cost. I mean, you scaling features, you're growing in customers, but you need to do it in a cost-effective way because now the number of servers you have probably is too big, and you're heading into Series C, Series D. You're probably focusing on exit the company, and right now it's super important to do two things. One is to create a cost-effective structure where it's cheaper per user to operate. And also, you have teams that have managers, directors or senior VPs that have VPs and have managers. You have many different levels of management there. So at this point, you need to scale an engineer organization. So this is the moment where you need a CTO. This is the moment you need somebody that has experience in how to grow teams, create a lot of processes, and be sure they can create an organization that can scale ad infinitum, providing value to the customers. And this person, of course, probably doesn't remember how to code. That probably be decades ago that they don't know code, and they don't know how to manage directly teams. This person doesn't have experience with Kanban, doesn't do meetings every day with engineers. This person is focused on being a leader, providing the vision to the engineering team and scaling it. So this is the moment when you need a CTO. What happens if you hire a CTO too soon? If you are like a super sexy startup and you are able to attract a CTO as an employee, a CTO from a bigger company, the problem is this person is going to be able to produce any product. So all the magic skills or the superpowers they have, you're not going to need it for the next couple of years. So probably this person is going to say, okay, the first thing I need is an assistant. I'm going to need an entire team, and they're going to ask for a lot of resources that probably you don't have. And at the end of the day, it will create separation between you and your team. So it's not going to be adding value for the next couple of years. Of course, I'm talking in general. There are cases where CTOs are great coders, and in that case, you should consider having them as co-founders, right? And the second, what happens if you hire a coder, a great coder, and you give them the CTO title just to convince them to join? That could work very well for a couple of years, but it could happen that in 5 years, that person doesn't have the leadership skill that is needed to scale an engineering organization. And maybe at that point, you will need to hire a CTO. So you cannot have you cannot have two CTOs. So probably you will end up firing this person that might be a great full stack engineer. So I see many times that they give titles to somebody to convince them, and in the future that end up being a huge problem. So I would recommend if you hire a great full stack engineer that have some leadership skill, just call them the lead engineer. So let me recap on building an engineering organization. A CTO the task is to build an engineering organization that can deliver quality and scale ad infinitum. That's a skill you need, and you're super far from needing that. And where you find these people, again, the magic of referrals. I mean, you need to come from your network or from your network. Of course, you can hire a recruiter to help you, but it's always easier, and it will provide the best quality to use your network. So let's start with questions. I have some more topics related to recruiting if you want later, but we would love to make this as interactive as possible. So we'd love to answer questions.
I would just like to encourage everybody to use the hand raise function so that there's a little bit of order to questions and answers. And while you guys locate that at the bottom of your Zoom, it's in the reactions, I'll kick it off. Thank you so much, Chris. I have a few questions. I was writing them down as you talk. My first big question is, what are high valued CTOs looking for when they are offered positions at a startup? Obviously, they know that these aren't, Fortune 500 companies that can offer them packages that they're probably used to. And I'm assuming that CTOs who have like a taste or some sort of desire to be in the startup space understand that there's like a give and take to that. So is there something that you would say, like, what should these startup founders be prepared to offer a CTO as like a reasonable package, that they don't have a lot to offer?
Yeah, I mean, it's not very typical that a seasoned CTO from a like a public company will like to join a startup. It's more like they do the bet like a little later, like in Series B, Series C, when they see they can first add value and they mitigate much of the risk. It's like a very risky play for somebody to join as an employee that early. Like a compensation package, I mean, of course, it's equity, but I don't recommend you to hire this profile in an early stage, because it's going to create a distance between the actual coders and the founders, and that distance should be zero. So I would say if this person is willing to be coding or very close at least to coding, I would consider making a CTO if this person looks like it's going to add a lot of value in the long run. But I wouldn't make an offer to join as an employee, because probably you don't have much to attract them. They will say, okay, I go, you give me 10% of the company as a co-founder, or give me $1 million a year. It's either or. So I don't think a startup have a lot of tools to attract a seasoned CTO. But again, my recommendation at this stage is go to a great engineer with leadership skills, because that's exactly what you need at this stage.
So that kind of brings up my second question, which is if you let's say you do have some great technical support already on your team and you want to, encourage them to grow into that CTO role, I feel like that's more reasonable of an approach for startups. Where would you point? I mean, obviously, leadership skills is where they're probably lacking, especially if they're traditional coders and they've just been working in that engineering field. Like, where would you point startups to help those kind of more junior people grow in that role, and not have to like learn on the job and cause?
Well, it's not very easy, because there's a lot of things that doesn't happen. I mean, the main skill of a CTO doesn't happen in the first rounds. So, I mean, what you need is somebody that can grow. I mean, you start with an engineer lead. You're an engineer, but you are the lead. Or you influence all the rest of the team. And if that leadership works, then that person can become a manager. And you have to help them and train him on what are the best tools to be a good manager. Kanban, Scrum, depending on the strategy you have. And from there, the person can continue to grow and eventually can become a leader of leaders. But it will depend on the velocity of the company. If the way I see this, if you're a co-founder and you have a co-founder CTO, okay, it's great to have a technical co-founder. So even if that person doesn't have the experience, okay, you can bet on that person that will learn. But if it's an employee, I will hire the person you need in each moment. And if that junior person can become a CTO of a Series C startup, I saw it many times. It can happen, but it's not the most common transition. I mean, if the company grows too fast, you cannot wait for people to learn, because there's a lot of mistakes they're gonna make while they learn that you cannot pay. And if the startup grows at a slower pace, yeah, maybe you can have internal people to grow, but it's also if you're not a technical founder and you hire somebody that is and you have a junior person to become CTO, it's not going to have a role model inside the company, because neither of the founders is a CTO. So it's going to be super difficult to give support, because nobody can teach them, because nobody suffer what needs to be suffered to learn how to be there. So my recommendation is we're talking of employees. You should hire what you need in each moment. And if you get a surprise that you have somebody from inside that could be more senior, of course, you should give the possibility.
Take advantage. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pass it to Moses, who has his hand raised. And I know, Danny, you had your hand raised for a hot second. So I'll pass it to you afterwards. And then I know that we have some in the chat as well. Go for it, Moses.
Hi, thanks so much for talking to us today. I really appreciate it. So we're a company that's about 1.5 years in, and my question is about sophistication on the financial side of things. You know, we're bringing a CTO, they're going to be able to create a balance sheet, cash flow and profit loss, and track activities so you know where your sources and uses are going from and what have you. But as a small startup, what's the expectation and how sophisticated should you be at whatever point of progression you are in your startup? And that the reason is I'm saying, you know, when do you really want to start to get sophistication with regard to like financial models and the level of detail for 5-year plans and, you know, selling by region and device and whatever, you know, like how, and because that can easily be a full-time job if you start doing that kind of detailed planning early, but it's, I think, maybe less meaningful until you get to the point where you're launching product. Oh, so could you comment on that?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Your question is when?
So in my mind, a CTO is managing projections, 5-year pro formas, tracking budgets, doing that kind of activity, which is the money for the company. And I'm curious about how sophisticated we should be.
Yeah.
Should we, as a 1-year startup or 2-year startup, should we be creating a cash flow, balance sheet, and profit loss?
I mean, I would say that's yes, it's true. The CTO is in charge of all that, but that's the 2% of the task that the CTO does. And like I said, the CTO scales the engineering organization. That's the main role. And they probably, I would say that every manager of every team is going to be in charge of their own budget and accounting, and then of course send it up and they consolidate and share. But I wouldn't hire a CTO because of that. I mean, I would hire a CTO because we grow enough. We have hundreds of people on the team, and we need to be sure that we can continue grow at the same pace or faster. And we don't create an organization that we put 100 people and explode because we don't know how to scale. But
yeah, I was just curious about the financial models around the technology.
No, I wouldn't hire
scale, but yeah, thank you.
A manager can definitely do that.
Okay.
Team is small.
Great question.
Quick comment. Oh, sorry. Quick comment around that topic. I agree with Thomas. I guess that Moses, what you're talking about is more like a CFO. And I also would agree that it's not quite the right time being like a 2-year-old company. Of course, it will depend on the stage of where you are and like in terms of fundraising. The more you get closer to getting public, the more detail you will need because it will be required. But in the meantime, it's a responsibility that every small team should manage on their own, and it shouldn't take too much time and take too much of their focus. And it's a CEO task until you get the CFO role itself.
Great, thanks, Anna. Okay,
Danny, sure.
over to Danny.
Hi, and thanks again for presenting this to us. The question I had was more around a CTO is many things to many people, right? And I think that you know, you provided a very clear definition as to what that CTO role is, but at the same time, are they expected to do other things? So I would say, you know, 20 or 80% would be more on the technology side, scaling your engineering team, figuring out, you know, what process you're going to use, and just creating some level of velocity and along with product delivery. That other 20%, is that something, you know, i.e., you know, budgeting for people, for process, for infrastructure? Are these critical in the initial stages, or is it more of an alignment with the product officer, you know, chief product officer, or even the CEO to ensure that there's a somewhat of a clear vision, and you know, you're able to release products and deliver on products and features and functions?
I would say that, like Anna said, when the team is too small, there's a couple of engineers, the CEO should do that. when the team grows and you have a manager, the manager should be in charge of a budget. I mean, when you're a huge organization, still every department manager manage the budget for the team and then consolidate up to the CTO and then to the CFO. So I would say that I would do exactly the same. If you don't have any leader, and this is just this engineer lead, of course, I wouldn't give this coder managerial stuff like budgeting. But I think that at that point, the company is no more than 10 people and the CEO can do that. And as soon as you have a manager, I will expect that the manager could do all the budgeting and all the projections in terms of financial.
Cool. Would you also look at CTOs with experience in large corporations and trying to attract some of their that type of talent? Given that many of these CTOs, they have directs who have directs who have directs, right? So they're really not touching a lot of this stuff. They're managing process, they're managing people, administrative wise, and then going from that world to a startup world, it's a totally different beast. So just because you have the CTO title is company size or organization size a factor in selecting that type of CTO?
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing I'm going to share is exactly that. Is you can call a CTO anybody. You can call CTO a programmer, you can call a manager, or you can call a real CTO. What I learned is that the moment you really need a CTO, it's when you're about to go public. I mean, or a couple of years before going public. The company I worked before, Medallia, hired a CTO like I think 3 years before going public, and the company. And I worked for the company 8 years, and yeah, they have like first have a manager, then have a VP of engineering. And yeah, when they needed really to scale the team and hire hundreds of engineers, they went and hired a CTO that came from Oracle that done this like 20 times before, and that's the skill they were looking for to the CTO. And what I saw many times is that if you call CTO anybody, then you're probably gonna have to fire somebody that is a great asset just because you gave the wrong title.
The title, right. Cool. Thanks so much.
We have a question from the chat, and Amanda's in a library right now, so I asked if it would be okay if I asked on her behalf. She's just looking for general advice for when it is a good time to find a technical co-founder if they don't have one on their team at the moment.
Yesterday. I think I mean when you had to try to find a great co-founder, even if you're a technical or not technical, I mean, doing a startup alone is super difficult. You reduce your chances, or you have to if you have somebody that you can join to your team, that will be you have to do it as soon as possible. But of course, you shouldn't have somebody join your team because it looks like nice on the deck, or investors are going to be happy to pour more money because that person. For me, the most important is that you have chemistry and you work very well with this person. If you know this person from your previous experience, much better. So my answer is as soon as possible, but doing the due diligence and being sure that you're not joining somebody that you don't want to work with. I mean, you should think on your co-founder that, okay, we're going to be in a terrible moment. We're gonna have fights. I want to be with this person where we are in the middle of a storm in the ocean with just a boat, or not. If the answer is I'm not sure, you're not ready yet to invite this person. If you're sure, you should do it as soon as possible, because doing this alone is super, super hard. I'm not gonna make that mistake again.
I couldn't agree more, having had so many startups come in and out of the garage and seeing, I mean, what looked like divorce papers delivered to each other when they finally, co-founders break up. Yeah, it is a very much like a marriage. And yeah, if you're not ready to weather I completely agree with what you're saying, Chris. We do have one more question in the chat, and then I'm going to go back to the hand raising. The question is from John. John, are you free to ask it aloud?
Yes.
Go for it.
All right. I have a venture that I've been working on for years. I'm the sole founder, have minimal tech background. Study AI every day, but not in the way of deep level coding. And it's an AI first venture. It involves media and a game, but I don't even have a prototype. I have some options with, let's say, sizzle reels, mocks, proof of concepts and all, but really need somebody with not just a commanding and broad range of skills, but someone who can be at the vanguard of advances in AI. That would seem to be a CTO. What do you think?
I think that yes, when I would, if I had to do something that is super deep in tech, I think it's more and more important that you have a co-founder that is super expert in that area. Of course, the name is going to be CTO, and when you have a co-founder that is super low level, that is in the code, the risk is that eventually that person cannot become the real CTO, and they don't enjoy to scale organization. They still enjoy coding. But in my experience, all those problems are solved in an easier way, because it's like the person doesn't want to be the CTO, so they're okay doing something else and changing the name, the role. But I would try to have somebody to join as a co-founder, because it's going to be, you need probably somebody who has a lot of experience, not just in tech, but also in the industry, and it's going to make or break your startup. I mean, there's some startup when the tech is important, and some other startup where the tech is everything. It sounds like that kind of startup, the tech is everything. So I would try to find a co-founder more than hiring a CTO, because it's you need to get the best of the best, and that the level you need them to get attracted is going to be at the co-founder level. But you still need somebody that can go low level. So the advice is exactly the same. You need to get somebody that is doing the code, not the scaling.
Just a follow-up response, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
There are these nitty-gritty things, whether it's very early stage funding, or whether it's an incubator, or other type of programs, angels, so forth, that they like to see something on the pitch deck with a title. And so that usually implies someone who has a designation CTO.
Okay, everything I'm saying, the objective of everything I'm saying is not to improve your chances of raise money. I mean, if you had to do it because you need to raise money, okay, it's your decision. I'm just talking this on a why is the best way, I think, based on my experience, to do this. But of course, if you do it for investors, I understand that, but it's a trade-off. You will understand that you could create problems in the future. But if I were an investor, for me, having somebody that is doing super deep tech like AI, depending on the level of AI, if it's using ChatGPT API or is building the models itself, I would expect to see somebody on the founding team that has experience in that. For me, that will be more of a red flag than if you hire somebody and give a title or the other. But I'm not the average investor, so don't take that.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Before I move over to Tom, I have just a few things to say. Chris, do you have more to present, or are we just in deep Q&A?
No, we're fine. I have more things about recruiting, but in case we
No, yeah. So I do want to jump back on as that. So I'm going to cap it with Tom. And just really quickly, I forgot to do this earlier. Part of the Oceanside Chat opportunity is that we have a room full of people who are coming from different areas, different backgrounds, different needs. Please use the chat to network. If this was an in-person event, you guys would all be passing around your business cards or whatever. LinkedIn profiles work really great. If you guys are looking for something in particular, some tech talent, or if you guys are looking to hire a CTO, or if you guys are just looking for that technical co-founder, drop that in the chat. I think it's important for you guys to connect with each other just as much as it is to get the value from our speaker. And then my shameless plug now, before we move on, is that we have another speaker series. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's now my virtual background. We're going to have Jonah Midnack come in 2 weeks to talk about how to build a very compelling pitch deck. He's come and done Oceanside chats for us before. So I'll drop all that information in the chat as well, so you guys can join those events as they come up. But I'm going to pass it to Tom, and then after Tom, I'm going to let Chris get back to his presentation. Go for it.
No. Sorry, I'm fine. Continue answering. This was a presentation about CTO. Like, I'm sorry. Okay. I slipped my finger in the next. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, go for it, Tom.
Nice. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate all the context. This really helped us plan with some of our current team members. My question was, and maybe this would be hard to answer, are there any red flags or anything you've noticed that kind of has made someone not work out well as a CTO, or any other kind of red flags or items you think one should be especially aware of? Thanks.
Well, I mean, the typical is like being a jerk. I mean, it's need to be like a people person, value the growth of the team. I mean, when you're looking for management or high management, the most important part is like, I like to ask the question when I do an interview is, why you like to be a manager or a CTO, whatever, anything on the managerial ladder. And if the answer I hear a lot of times, me, probably it's not going to be a good fit. I mean, being manager is about +1 + 1 = 3. I'm very good at making the average people produce more than average. That's what you want to see in everyday interaction. I mean, somebody that is really focused on people and being sure that everybody is happy, even if they're in a storm, because startups are storms, but still everybody is following the dreams, and for me it will be like a huge red flag, more than if they don't delivering or they cannot scale as fast. Those things could be solved, but if you're not a good person and you don't thinking your people first, then for me that's a huge red flag.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, we have another question from Danny. Go for it, Danny.
It's not really a question. It was just to jump on the back of that, what Chris was saying, just to add a little more context. You do want to interview, the folks, and if they give you these keywords where me, I, instead of we, us, that's definitely a good marker. What I like to do is actually give them some scenarios. Working with the development team, they're stuck, they're trying to do too much, blah blah. What do you do? And sometimes you just by grilling them on these real world situations, you actually start to see their true character come out. So it's really having a couple of good conversations with them, because usually their first interview, they're going to probably say all the right things to generate a second or third interview, and just giving them a lot of these different types of scenario questions would definitely help you to figure out. There may be certain things that they say or how they react to a certain question, body language, or even the actual response, that is a clear indicator that they may not be the right person for you and for your team. So.
That's a good advice.
Do we have any more questions from the group? I've not been looking at the chat. I do see some people utilizing the chat to plug themselves. Great job. Okay, we have a question from, tell me if I said this wrong, is it Fong?
No, you're right. You got it right.
Nice.
Yeah, so I had a question for Chris. Chris spoke earlier about if you were to hire the wrong CTO, or early on give them the position or the name, the title of CTO,
Mhm.
it jeopardizes long term, but also you have to fire someone. So can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I say that, for example, you hire a great engineer, it's an awesome AI engineer that's going to build your product, and you want to convince him to shine, so you call him CTO. Then that person is a great engineer, but this not good at all being a manager. So you start to grow, you start to hire a lot of engineers, and you still need managers, and you need somebody that can lead the managers, be a leader. So it's even a deeper gap between this person's experience and what is needed. So it's going to be a moment that you're going to have to hire a real CTO or a real VP of engineering at that time. And if the person is called CTO, there is a huge contradiction. You cannot have two CTOs. So you end up maybe having to fire somebody because this person is not going to be willing to change the title to engineer, because you just gave a title that you're not sure at the moment you're giving the CTO title to an engineer, even if it's the best engineer in a field, that it will be a great manager. Or also it will be a great leader that's going to grow an engineering organization. So what I'm saying is, I see many times people fire just because of the title. And if instead you call that person lead engineer, you can keep them because they're still a great lead engineer. So that's my recommendation. If you hire an engineer, just call him engineer, not CTO.
Absolutely. That makes sense to me. And I think something that you spoke upon is also finding the right balance of that. Either that person could be trained to be a manager in a couple years, or perhaps if they can't be a manager, you have that cushion to hire someone, right?
Mhm.
Because if you were to put them on so early, then it jeopardizes your entire long term and also run map for the next 3 or 4 years. Also, follow-up question from that is, what's more common, hiring a CTO maybe 4 or 5 years out, or kind of choosing your lead engineer to become your CTO?
Let me give you something about what you said first. I wouldn't optimize for that balance. I would optimize for what you need in each moment, and also answering the second part. I mean, you need right now. The only focus you will have is in product market fit. Scaling engineer is a problem of the future, and that future is not going to happen if you don't get to product market fit. So even if you had to hire somebody now and another person in 2 years, it's okay. It's a great trade-off. Right now, you have to find the right person for this moment, and the right person for this moment is a full stack engineer or engineer. It's not somebody that has leadership. If this person is a great leader and can lead the team from the engineering point of view, even better. But you don't need a manager. So I wouldn't even, if you have two persons that one is 1% better than the other one, and the other one has managerial skill, I still gonna hire the one that is better on the technical side at this stage. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it sounds like there's no one way to prepare for having a CTO. It sounds like the most important aspect is to be very sensitive about where your business is and just make sure that you're able to get to the point where if you are ready to hire a CTO, you can. I have a question. It kind of goes back to my original question about, having technical talent and potentially somebody on your team who you have high hopes for growing into that role. Like, what would you say, like, good metrics, benchmarks, expectations to have for, like a lead engineer to grow into a CTO role, if that's of what you can afford and what's working for your business? What would those benchmarks look like?
Let me tell you something before. It's going to be super hard because this person is not going to have any role model. So as a leader, you should always have some role model for all your employees. And this is not the exception. So it's going to be, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be super hard because who's going to modulate this experience? I mean, this person needs to grow into being a CTO of an organization is super difficult to do if you never did it before. So it can happen, but it's going to be like 1 in a million that you can be a senior engineer and you become CTO not having any single role model inside the organization and growing to that point, awesome. I in the company that I worked before, the VP of engineering until the Series D, I think it was the first engineer. So I saw it working, but this is not the typical path. And what I will look like, of course, leadership. How good leader is, how you influence the people, how much you think about the people and not you, how you think, you can make people better every day. I mean, if you're continuous thinking on how can you make your team better, that's a very good predictor of good leadership. But that's the managerial part of the skills you want this person to have. But there is also a lot of experience that you will not have, and it's going to be super difficult to learn if nobody can transpire you that experience.
Got it. We have a question in the chat from Chele, it looks like her name is, or his. It says, is there a good place to look for a CTO specifically in blockchain?
I'm sorry, blockchain is not my I don't have good experience there. So but again,
Second degree.
Yeah, probably meeting people that is on that world will help you, like going events and meeting people and people that you admire will be like a good place to look for. But again, my recommendation is before hiring a CTO, establish a relationship and work together sometime. And then, of course, if you're okay crossing the ocean in a boat with that person, just do it.
Are there like organizations out there, consortiums and things of like CTOs where, let's say you do want some mentorship, right? You want to have someone that your tech lead can, have as a resource to grow into that role? Are there places that founders can point their tech staff to make connections? Are there organizations like that?
When I was in Medallia, it was not a place, but I contacted every single engineering leader that was like in the country, and I established like a monthly meeting when we all cry together kind of meeting. It was awesome. We learned a lot.
What was that organization called, or what was that group called?
No, it was like a group chat. We did it like ad hoc. It was not like an organization.
It was like a loose association. Got it.
We started to contact each other. We create a chat and say, okay, let's cry together every second Thursday of the month.
Sounds like the Startup Garage Founder Circle. I'm going to pass it to Coda, who has a question. Go for it, Coda. I'm sorry.
I guess you muted
you.
How you doing? Christian, everybody. Thanks for this event. My name is Brendan. I guess my alias is showing up there. I'm a founder of a startup by the name of 7 Green Lights. We host digital venues for creators that actually pay out venue revenue to the participants from sponsors for each venue. It's kind of like your node concept for growing your referral network, as using each artist as a node and their respective networks. Anyways, I've been working on this so long, it's tough to even still call it a startup. It began with an idea that seemed pretty simple at the beginning. I'm not technical. I was just coming out of law school, and I'm a music guy. Figured I would go for it, try to merge my interests. And it's been a long road. My original bootstrap budget has long been blown through, and I've worked with various dev teams along the way. Anyways, we have hit some milestones. I have a patent approved in the last few years, multiple trademarks. After working with like 7 different teams, I finally got a code base that's like 80% of the way to a pretty strong MVP, and then it fell apart. And only in the last few months did I find a group of small team through Upwork, and I know that's that's a crapshoot, but it's actually been going well. We've kind of like put Humpty Dumpty back together again and built out these last few features that were incomplete. And we're like 2 to 3 weeks away from a little soft kind of local launch with these venues. Meanwhile, I know someone else asked this question about raising money, and your point is different than that. But every Y Combinator, they all seem to kind of not take you seriously if you're a non-technical solo founder. And I get that. So I've actually found I found 2 candidates through their co-founder portal that Y Combinator has. And the best candidate is in Nepal. And I'm still finalizing with these 2 guys in Pune, India, that I still have to pay, and I'm out of a budget. So that's a pressure now. I'm trying to bring in this other candidate in Nepal who I think is a CTO candidate, co-founder candidate. But I heard what you said, like there's no reason to give away necessarily those larger titles, co-founder, CTO, if I should just if he could just be the lead engineer and prove himself and work his way into that role. I guess my question is, how, what do you recommend in that scenario? And also, what do you think of with having a co-founder that's on the opposite side of the world with you? I mean, we're always talking at, nighttime, morning for the other guy, that sort of thing. But we're pretty good. I'm trying to do little trial projects to make sure he's the real deal. And I like the team that's actually got the site alive again, but I can't keep paying them unless we raise, some capital. So I'm trying to kind of integrate these two different teams. And I'm not exactly, I had in my mind, I just needed a co-founder. I need the CTO for these types of applications to incubators, et cetera. So it sounds like maybe I'm getting ahead of myself with that need for that official title.
Before you start, Christian, I just want to say that I appreciate your share. I mean, I think that what you're experiencing, just so that you know, is unique to you. This is a very common early stage tech startup issue. Thank you for being so vulnerable about it. And I'll let Christian go ahead and take the question.
Oh, I was about to say the same. I mean, it's the perfect story of resilience. So I love that. Let me tell you, everything I'm saying, it's like ideal things when you have the liberty to choose. When you don't have the liberty to choose, I mean, you have your main objective as a founder is to your company get alive into the next phase. So you have to do whatever it takes to get to that phase. So about the investor, let me tell you, they always going to have an excuse to not invest in you. I mean, it's each case you don't have a founder, then your founder is in Nepal, and then the economy, and you're never going to keep them happy. You're going to check everything, and at the end say, no, you don't have that. So I cannot recommend you anything on that, but for sure, you have to do whatever you need to do to get alive into the next cycle. So if you have to call CTO programmer in Nepal, and that's the only way you're gonna be able to raise money, just do it.
Right. What about the kind of extreme remote team building?
Again, it's not ideal, of course. One day work around between emails, it's terrible. But if you find the person that can build your product and is gonna do it, just keep it. You have to keep your company alive into the next round. So that's ideal doesn't exist. Yeah.
No, that's all I've been doing is I've gotten to the point in the last couple of years where it's like whatever it takes just to keep the vitals alive and actually see the idea, like give it a real shot, like see if it can get airborne.
And it seems you're close. So
it is. 7greenlights.com. There's a bunch of dummy content there. You can filter by archived venues. to get the idea.
Looks
But
cool.
yeah, I appreciate that insight. It sounds like I maybe got to pump the brakes on that, seeking that official title, or go more lead engineer.
Let's see how
Yeah.
important is. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, Christian.
No. Just that. See how much important it is. I mean.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a big deal.
Right.
I do think it's important to just remind everyone that, you know, the path is unique, right, for everyone. And that in an ideal world, you raise money, you scale, you have the money to hire CTO. It all happens the way that it should. But reality is that you guys are all surviving out there and doing your best. And I just want to say, as we kind of get to time, that from my vantage point, you know, this is not an issue that's easily solved. And I'm sure Chris can cover a million topics when it comes to how to build tech team, period, for startups. You guys are fighting in a lot of ways a losing battle, and so any solutions are probably good solutions. And I think making it work is kind of the name of the game. So, you know, just continue to work to survive so that you can get to the point where you can, you know, see that next horizon and have more direction in that to achieve your next big goal. Chris, I'm going to pass it to you for final thoughts. Any parting words? I mean, I feel like there's probably many things you can say, but something to kind of wrap it up and encourage these founders to continue.
That's last sentence. I mean, everything I said, it's coming from my experience that happened to me or things I saw that somebody else happened. But again, I mean, ideal scenarios doesn't exist, and you could do the opposite that I'm saying and end up being well because you find the right person and they can adapt and they can grow and they can end up being a great CTO. Of course, I'm talking on my experience on what I saw, somebody else's mistake. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I will be sending a follow-up email out to everyone after this event. I will include the video, anything that was dropped in the chat, and also some of our upcoming events and the registration information for that. Please feel free to keep VSG in mind if you guys are a team and you're looking for a place to incubate. Our application cycle will open up in the spring, in the next couple of months. And if you guys are students, consider joining us for our summer internship program. Thank you so much, Anna and Chris, for joining us today. Hopefully we'll see you again in a few months to do another talk. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you, Arcelia.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.